They got Terry and Arnold on with Andy Staples.
All right, tweeting it out. All right. We are ready to roll. What's going on, everybody? Keith Niebuhr and Corey Bender with Gators Online to talk some Florida Gators football recruiting. And we've had so many big updates on major recruits this week that we felt like it was probably time to do a live show and bring everybody in. And we're going to chat about Florida Gators recruiting for about a half hour. We'll take some questions if any pop up. And, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. We got some big names to talk about.
Yeah.
Corey, first of all, we had a big update at Gators Online today on 5-star defensive lineman, defensive end / edge, LJ McCray. And this is significant. He confirmed what we've been saying for really a couple of months, that he's going to have a decision soon. He, in fact, told Joseph Hastings of On3 today that he's going to have a commitment decision probably in the next couple of weeks. So it won't be a long wait for Florida, Florida State, Georgia, Miami, and Auburn. And a couple other interesting pieces of information from our LJ McCray interview today. He said that, he's really close with 3 coaches at Florida. Now, he said that before. Austin Armstrong, the defensive coordinator, Sean Spencer, the defensive line coach, but also the edge / outside linebackers coach, Maake Peterson. And he was asked, which one's your position coach? And he said, it's Maake P. And they really click. He said, we're both chill. We're both mellow guys. But that was interesting because it tells me, I doubt Florida's recruiting him exclusively to play edge, Corey, but I think they're probably telling him, like a lot of these guys, you're so versatile that you can play in a bunch of different spots. And they've got a lot of guys like that in this class. Jamonte Waller could play inside linebacker or edge. Amaris Williams could play end or edge or outside backer. Kendall Jackson could play end or edge, that F position. I mean, so they've got some real versatile guys. And obviously LJ McCray, who I think is like Myles Garrett of high school football this year, size and skill set wise, he's a guy that, can play in multiple spots. And so that was significant. Another development, Corey, or another thing that he said in this interview, hey, I'm real close with the Florida commitments. I talked to these guys a lot, including DJ Lagway, the 5-star quarterback. And if I went to Florida, they would be a big reason why, maybe the single biggest reason why. So, Corey, he's coming off, we're talking about LJ McCray, the 5-star defender, we'll call him. Again, inside, edge, defensive. I mean, this guy can play about anywhere. Corey, there's been chatter really about 3 schools predominantly in his top 5, Florida, Florida State, and Georgia. He's coming off last weekend's official visit to FSU. Again, a decision, he said today, coming probably in the next couple of weeks. We know his birthday's on October 18th. It shouldn't be long after that. Does anyone have the edge right now? I know there's cautious optimism at a lot of schools, but does anybody have the edge? Corey, that's what everybody's trying to figure out. I don't know that I have an answer to that right now.
Yeah, right now you would think the school who just hosted in Florida State, the only school that got an in-season official visit, they're the school most fresh in his mind. But, we're farther into the week now. People always talk about the visit high, how kids kind of get stuck in that high and they're so stuck on the school. It's been a few days now and he's been through a lot of visits. So he's really kind of attacked it with a mature mindset where he kind of separates himself from it. And, I'm with you, Keith. I don't even think even LJ knows where he wants to go. I still think it's Florida, Florida State, and Georgia. I know there's been some kind of behind-the-scenes optimism with Miami, too, as far as being a dark horse. But I think right now, I think it's Florida State or Florida. I know people keep saying Georgia, too. Georgia's right there at the top. I think the in-state schools might be in a better spot as of today, but it's very, very close.
Well, that's interesting. We know that Georgia has several defensive linemen committed, and they see him on the defensive line all the way. Again, we're trying to get a handle on where Florida sees him. I mean, we always thought, defensive end, but the fact that he said that he's talking to Peterson as closely as anybody, or as much as anybody, and he in fact said Peterson was his position coach. Now that maybe he misspoke.
That's interesting, yeah.
But
he's about 270-ish right now. He's a big
if anybody could do that. Now again, I think he'd be a guy you could float around and put, golly, he's good. I mean, you could put him about anywhere. He's got, 12, 13 tackles for loss, 7 or 8 sacks this season. 33 tackles. That was actually in his first 5 games. We don't have his updated stats through 6 games. So Florida's sitting in what we think is a good spot. The question is how good of a spot. He does have some ties to Tallahassee. I think his people have said, I think his mother went to school up there at maybe FAMU. I'm not 100% on that, but it's interesting. He's always liked FSU. We do know that. And they were kind of betting on them having a solid season and maybe Florida not having a great season. And that's why they wanted that in-season official. So if you're watching this, you're saying, well, why didn't Florida get him on an in-season official? Florida doesn't want to do in-season officials. Yep. As far as we know, they're only going to do one, and that was Jordan Seaton, the 5-star offensive tackle. They really would prefer to spend more time with the young guy. The problem is, and it's not really a problem, but when you have an official visit in June, now LJ McCray, by the way, official visit in June, was back in July, was back for the Tennessee game. It's not like he hasn't been back to Florida, but I think there always is some of that in the back of your head. You're thinking out of sight, out of mind, and now Florida State gets him on campus, and it may be his last visit before he announces his decision. Yeah. So you're right. So I think that's the big concern right now. What we can tell you is the Florida commits have always said the last few months that they feel like Florida is right there and has an outstanding shot of landing him. We know that he's close with DJ Lagway. We know that he talks a lot to Miles Graham. We know that he communicates often with 3 Gator assistant coaches. Again, Mike Peterson, Austin Armstrong, the defensive coordinator, Sean Spencer, the defensive line coach. Peterson, obviously a former Gator who played many years in the NFL and has a similar type of personality. And he also speaks a lot with Billy Napier. We know that too. And so, Florida's got a lot of things working in its favor. Again, when he was asked today what would be the reason if he picked Florida, he basically said because of all the relationships he has with people, and he was pointing a lot toward the commitments. He really got close with a lot of those guys, particularly when he officially visited in June. He was there the same weekend as a lot of these stars, Cory. But I got to tell you right now, this one is still too close to call. I wouldn't bet against Florida. It's always felt like Florida was the one common denominator. Miami felt like they had to beat Florida. Florida State felt like Florida was always going to be there. Georgia felt like they had to beat Florida. And so that could be telling as well. But again, we know there's mostly cautious optimism at Florida. They feel like, Cory, we know this. We both confirmed this from multiple sources, that he's their number one defensive target. And quite frankly, you could argue now, you said in a recent column, you felt like Jordan Seaton was the most important, but to the staff, they have prioritized LJ McCray like he is the guy. And even ahead of Jeremiah Smith, the 5-star receiver committed to Ohio State. So number one priority, LJ McCray. They feel like at Florida, they've done all they can do. It's up to him now. They feel like they've positioned themselves to sell the program, the vision of the program. And he has said that he feels like Florida is a program on the rise. So it lines up with a lot of the things that they're saying, with a lot of the things he's saying. But what is he telling the other schools? That's
well, I was going to add that too, Keith, too. When we went to a school about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, and I spoke with him, and I said to him too, what makes Florida such an appealing option? All these schools check so many boxes, they all have the facilities, but Florida individually, what makes them special? And he said it's a program that's like basically rebuilding. And most kids, you don't hear it too often from, especially top-notch kids like that, kids with that elite ranking. And he said that because Daytona Beach Mainland, they went through something similar a few years ago where they their record dipped a little bit, and then he was part of a rebuild to really get them on track. And look at them right now, I believe they're undefeated. So that's something that excites him, just the fact to construct something with the staff and really turn the corner and watch that growth. That's another thing at Florida, like you said, Keith, a box that Florida kind of checks right now as a program on the rise.
Yeah, I mean, look, I hate to make a pick right now. If you said, Keith, you absolutely have to make a pick right now, I think I would lean Florida, but it is still too close to call. He's going to, by the way, be revealing in the next few days what his commitment date will be. So you'll want to stay tuned to GatorsOnline.com or follow him on Twitter. That's probably where he's going to let everybody know. But commitment coming soon. We're going to keep digging on this. We're going to keep talking to other commits to Florida, not other commits. People think I gave something away there. I didn't. I wish I had that info. But we're going to talk to people around LJ McCray, try to get a better feel for this. It's been hard. He is a pro. In fact, somebody high up at the University of Florida back in June told me, Cory, they said, hey, this guy's a pro. I mean, he knows how to handle this recruiting thing. He's got everybody sort of guessing.
And the thing is, too, he doesn't look too stressed out either. When I asked him, I felt like when I was talking to him, he kind of has it to a point where he's not overwhelmed. And I think, too, the good thing is he's really, when he put out that top 5, that's it. Like, hey, I'm not dealing with other schools right now. And I think that's where it can kind of get overwhelming. And Keith, you said something a minute ago, if we had to put a prediction right now, I've always kind of leaned with him as the RPM favors Florida, right? They've got him on the campus the most. I go back and forth. Right now, I almost view them as a number 2 for him. I think he can go to Georgia, Florida State, or Florida. Neither one of them would surprise me at all. I mean,
I
think you and I are both agree on that.
Well, yeah, and obviously his dad's has been a college coach for many years. He was tied in with Bethune-Cookman.
Yep.
Really nice family. This kid is terrific to deal with. He still does interviews. He's a couple weeks out, and he still takes the time to talk to everybody. He's never once been rude, I should point out. Not one time. Not one time did he say, nah. No, he's great, but he's hard to read. And it's not just us that are having a hard time reading him. It's the colleges as well. Now we may find out down the road that he was committed somewhere all along. Who knows, right? There's always that too.
I mean, really, Zay Mincy too. You can almost say they both have done. I mean, we know which schools are in the mix for both of them, but it's really right now, if we had to put a prediction for both, Mincy's the same way. I probably lean with Florida right now, but Miami, Alabama, they're going to get an OV. So, I mean, it can go either way for both these mainly kids.
It could. All right. Yeah. So before we get going on to the next subject, be sure to hit the like button if you like what we're doing. If you don't like what we're doing, you don't have to. You could do it anyway just to be nice. Take the high road. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave a comment. We're going to always try to get to as many of them as we can. Back to LJ McCray before we move on. Again, for those that jumped in late, he told On3 today, hey, I'm going to have a commitment decision in the next couple of weeks, almost very likely next couple of weeks. We've been saying for months it would be right around his birthday, which is October 18th, and he has confirmed that he's close. Oh, I should point out one thing. He said today, I have not made up my mind yet. Now, is he lying? I don't think the guy's a liar, but sometimes you don't want to. A fib is different than a lie, I guess.
I asked him the same question.
He's a very first. I mean, we're talking about a first-class dude here. But look, I mean, it's going to be soon, so you won't have to wait long. Florida has a very big need along that D line. Again, he's a D line / edge. He can do so many things. So
he gave me the classic answer when I asked, "Is there one school? Don't tell me the school, but is there one school you know right now that's leading?" He gave me the classic. Every morning, it's a new school. And I was like, "Hey,
we need to point out you talked to him a couple of weeks ago. I want to make sure that we don't get that confused with today's interview.
Look at even after FSU visit, like you said, we don't know if that's necessarily true, but we'll see."
All right, next up, Cory, you did get on the road today. We had Joseph Hastings over in Daytona Beach. I get to sit at home and do nothing all day. Joseph Hastings interviewed LJ McCray over in Daytona Beach. You went down to Largo today from where you live just north of Tampa it's an interesting one, to check in with 4-star linebacker Darius Hayes. And we'll get some comments here. I'm looking to see if we're missing any comments here. Okay. We're going to try to get some of these in here. All right. Darius Hayes, 4-star linebacker committed for the Gators, committed to Florida way early in the year. Boy, but he's been to Miami a couple times, and he was just there this past weekend. If you're a Florida fan, you're thinking, hey, I'm glad he was at that game. Miami gagged. All right. They gave it away. But you know what? Miami picked up a commitment like 48 hours after that game from Nye Carr, one of the best receivers in the entire country. Kids look at things a little different than we do, man. They always have. What's the latest on Darius Hayes, Cory?
Yeah, so right now he's not ruling out any other additional visits. Nothing's set right now, but I think right now Florida's biggest competition is Miami. Like you said, Keith, he got on campus over the summer. Even after that, Hayes said his recruitment was shut down. It's been all Florida. It's his lifelong favorite school, but then they were still able to convince him to get back down there again. And basically they told him this weekend, hey, we want you in the class. Obviously your priority, but he told them right away, hey, obviously it's opportunity. You guys can keep recruiting me. He said he's keeping his options open, but he said, quote unquote, I'm locked in with Florida. I think overall it's going to take a lot for him to change his mind, but I do also want to add, I think he's more open than what people probably imagine. I know he has been solid to Florida. It's his favorite school, but it's another kid who really handles the process with a business-like mindset, who really kept telling me, he's like, hey, I get this opportunity once in my life. I'm going to take advantage of it. He just wanted to kind of see other schools. So we'll see. It wouldn't surprise me. I think probably some in-home visits are going to take place at the end. We'll probably have some Florida fans kind of a little bit nervous, but I think his commitment's solid, but he's definitely keeping the door cracked open. I think that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, but that's not eliciting a lot of confidence there, Cory. That makes you, if I'm a Florida fan, I'm all of a sudden a little bit concerned about that one. There's been some confidence coming out of Coral Gables for a couple of months. Maybe they knew something. Why does Florida I know you're pretty plugged into this situation, particularly with this recruitment. Why does Florida continue to feel pretty good about this? Like, hey, we're going to hold on to this guy. Excuse me. I got the hiccups. I got the burps. Why do they feel like they're going to hold on to the guy, Corey?
I think the main thing of the relationships, that comfort level with the staff. And that's the other thing too. Like, he committed at the end of January. He's been up there a countless amount of time. Just want to add too, he's going to the last 2 home games, and he's going to Jacksonville for the Georgia game. So he really supports this team. It's kind of been in his blood. He's been a Florida guy his whole life. But I think the biggest thing too, and he mentions me, is the hospitality of Florida, saying, they really take care of my family and I when I come up. And I spoke to a source in Gainesville last week and kind of said the same thing, where Florida has always thought they've done all they can with him. They've rolled out the red carpet. They've recruited him even when he's committed, like he's an uncommitted guy. So Florida right now feels like they've done all they can. Obviously the season's still playing out. That's a big thing. I think right now Florida's confident they're going to hold on, but you just never know. Like I said, he could go back to Miami. There could be other schools he could visit, but nothing's set right now.
It's Corey, is there any chance, you look at Florida's commitment list, it's pretty stacked at linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty stacked at linebacker. Is there any chance he's looking at that? And have you heard anything that he may be like, I don't know, man. I mean, how am I going to get on the field, or when am I going to get on? Any of that crossing his mind? Does that come
No, I don't think so. I haven't
seems
heard
like
that.
A confident young guy,
Yeah, just a real. It's funny. I talked to him. I shook his hand today. Almost like I said, I was like, God, I felt like I'm shaking a 40-year-old's hand.
He's having a hell of a season, by the way, too.
Yeah, very mature, very locker room type, captain type. He's a very mature kid. I think Florida, like you said, he also added too when I spoke to him, I can't wait to get to Florida. So right now, his heart's in Gainesville. He loves it there. And just to add to I know a lot of Florida fans will like this. When he was at the Miami game, they're keeping track on the Florida score. His mom was looking at the score when they won. He said he was super stoked up and stoked in the stands. You can tell he's a Florida guy at heart.
Yeah, my gut says he sticks. And here's we don't know. We'll see, right? But here's the thing. Even if you go 12-0, people are coming after your guys. I mean, somebody's always going to just feel more comfortable somewhere else. You're going to lose a few, but you're going to pick up a few too. We've already seen Florida flip TJ Abrams, the 4-star wide receiver from FSU. And now they're also trying to flip a couple of guys, but one of them being 4-star defensive lineman Deante Robinson from Texas. He's not from the state of Texas. They're trying to flip him from the Texas Longhorns. He goes to high school at Orlando Jones, Corey. I went out and spent some time with him late last week. His head coach, Elijah Williams, Gator great Elijah Williams, one of my favorite players. Started off as a running back in 94, 95. And I think 96, 97, he moved to cornerback, ended up playing several seasons in the NFL. And now he's a very successful high school coach at Orlando Jones, the high school of one Wesley Snipes. I always like to point out, one of my favorites. But Deante Robinson's an interesting one. It's really going to come down to Florida and Texas. And when he committed to Texas in July, Florida felt good all week. They thought they were getting him. But he committed to Texas. Florida never took the foot off the gas, continued to recruit him. A couple weeks ago, he showed up at Florida out of the blue. Excuse me, for the Charlotte game. After the game, we got some real Florida vibes, man. Like, man, he was talking up Florida. Then he communicated with Texas, which didn't know he was going to visit. I don't think they were too thrilled, but since then, it seems like Texas has sort of solidified its spot as the top school again. And he said, and I said, what kind of chance does Florida have the other day? And he said, well, not much of one. I go, were you going to visit? And he said, well, I'm thinking about it, maybe, so there you go. There's already the door's a little bit still cracked. And then also, Corey, I said, well, what's it going to take? Now, what would it realistically take for somebody, particularly Florida, because even his coach said they're really the other school involved with him. It's Florida. If it's not Texas, it's going to be Florida. And Deante Robinson said, look, I'm looking at Texas and I'm looking at the opportunity. Not only are they really good, that's what everybody's seeing right now. They got this really good team. But he's looking at the defensive line, and they've got 2 senior starters on the defensive line. He's an early enrollee. He said, I'm going to get in there early, and I know that I'm going to have a shot to play. Now, Florida just signed a pretty strong defensive line class last year, Corey, but then brought in a couple transfers. So we don't know how good those guys are yet, those young guys. But he's looking at Texas, and he's seeing that opportunity. And I'm just, it's not my job to nod, agree, disagree, show him depth charts. We don't get involved in recruitments, okay? He goes where he wants to go, and we stay the hell out of the way. But when he's talking, I'm listening. And he said, if Florida's going to have to show me something on the field, but they're going to have to show me that it's a better option, So Florida's, that's hard. That when you look at what he's saying, hey, they're losing 2 guys on the defensive line. Now, Florida could lose some guys too. Cam Jackson is having a good season. He could be off to the NFL. So it could work both ways. But Florida's telling him, and it's Sean Spencer, who you know really well, I believe, Coach Chaos, very personable guy. I've actually seen him in action, Corey, out of high school. Man, that guy can talk to anybody. He is the real deal when it comes to connecting with people, women, men, black, white, everything. So anyway, he's telling him, and Billy Napier's telling him, why go all the way to Texas when you can get everything at Florida, all the things you want? So he's conflicted. I think he's still sort of conflicted. He loves Texas. He feels good about Texas, but it's tough because, as he pointed out just the other day, he said, hey, Florida, I said, what did you tell Texas when they said, why did you go to the game? He said he flat out told Texas, because it's my dream school, talking about Florida. So here's a kid on the one hand that's saying,
probably like the answer if you're Texas.
I kind of feel bad. Yeah, I kind of feel bad for this kid because he's
tough.
Clearly conflicted. He clearly likes both schools a lot, and there's a lot to like about both of them. Obviously,
he probably could. He probably go to one school for 2 years, go to the other one for the other.
You never know these days. But right now, I feel like he probably sticks with Texas. Although there are people at Florida that are like, hey, you know what? Going to keep recruiting him. We both heard this. The plan for Florida, they're going to keep recruiting him and see what happens. And there's other things going on. Florida's got one true defensive lineman committed right now, and that's Nasir Johnson, 4-star from Dublin, Georgia, who showed up at Georgia last weekend. Florida knew he was going to be there, and they feel like they're making a move. Like I know there's some comments about it that we're going to get to the comments in just a minute, but Georgia feels like they've made a move. He's a good chance he may officially visit there. I still say 60-40 Florida, but it was 90-10 a week ago. So Florida can't afford to lose him. So if they do, then you're going to be all out for Deante Robinson. And then also we have one more defensive lineman to talk about.
Maake Baro. I was going to ask you too, Keith, when it came with Deante Robinson with Texas, did he ever mention, I know Peyton Kirkland, Cedric Baxter, both Orlando guys. Does he ever mention that?
No, he didn't. But let me say this. With Florida, the defensive line recruiting, I don't want to lose my train of thought here, Corey. I've already lost it. So not only do you have this going on, you're trying to flip Deante Robinson, you're trying to hold off Georgia for Nasir Johnson, and you're trying to get Maake Baro, who was committed to you and then decommitted in the last month, and everybody thought, he's going to Georgia. Well, that didn't happen. Well, where else is he going to go? He showed up back at Florida this past weekend, and now, Corey, you've got some info on him. They're back in the mix with Maake Baro. And so, it's there's all these moving pieces right now.
Yeah, I think with Maake Baro too, he even told when we spoke to him, he's not even close to making another decision. I think he said Michigan he's going to take an OV. Not often do you see a kid decommit and then end up in the same class. When that does happen, maybe it's a kid from, in-state kid or whatnot or a certain connection. But after talking to Baro, I really think Florida has a chance to reel him back in. When he went to that game, he thought it was going to be awkward, and understandably so. You decommit. He decommits, and then next you think the whole entire staff's just going to be awkward. But he said it was like he never left. He was just like he picked up right where it left off. It was a home-like feel. The staff showered him with love, So it's one of those things I definitely know when he stepped in and saw the atmosphere too. He gave him butterflies, gave him the chills. So I think overall Florida got back on campus at the perfect time. And I think overall the game, even though it was Vanderbilt and we're looking through the scope as a Florida fan too. If you're a Florida fan or covering Florida, like these kids look at it as an SEC game. So a lot of these kids, and he was just excited to be there for an SEC game. And I thought that him visiting for that weekend, or if he did come for Tennessee, it was perfect timing on there.
Yeah, a lot of kids didn't have opportunity. I mean, he was up where he goes to school in Creekside, which is just west of Atlanta, Fairburn, not that far away from Cam Newton's high school, by the way. Westlake High School. So, a lot of these kids, they didn't have a chance to go to 50 college games when they were kids. Just going to get to see Florida play Charlotte is a big deal for some of them. All right, let's get to a bunch of comments, Corey, and then we'll let everybody get out of here. Nature Gator says the guy who does the UGA recruiting podcast thinks Georgia's going to flip Nasir Johnson. I don't know who that is. There's a bunch of –
It's close, though. I mean, to me, I think he's one of the guys to keep an eye on for sure as far as in this class. Even just Georgia,
I would think
too.
Yeah, I would think that's certainly somebody to watch. And then the Nature Gator says the same person also thinks Georgia's going to sign McCrae. Look, I mean, the thing is, people dog the Georgia recruiting writers, and it's a pun, but not intended. But look, they're right a lot because Georgia gets a lot of guys. That's what you got to deal with right now. You have to turn the tide on that, though. And at some point, it'll be Florida getting a bunch of guys again. We'll see when that is. All right. Perry says, "Come on, Cory, you have to have some kind of insight."
I don't butt in when Keith's talking. I just sit back.
All right. Let's see. Willie Peterson. We surely need him to commit in his teammate. They're talking about LJ McCray, obviously. Did you get a sense? Did we get a sense that LJ McCray's upcoming commitment will be a final decision? I think it probably would be. He's done all that. He's tired of all this stuff.
He doesn't seem like the type that, even on social media, he doesn't even announce his visits most of the time. Yeah. He even said, he goes, I just make it the week of and I show up. So
Perry says if he commits to Florida, will On3 drop his ranking? You mean the site that has DJ Lagway ranked ahead of the other sites right now? Look, I mean, all right, let's see. Here's a good question. Willie Peterson, is the defensive end from Mississippi still a 5-star? Willie, I don't know who you're talking about. I assume you mean Jamonte Waller. First and foremost, he's not a defensive end. He's 6'1". He's an edge slash, talking about Jamonte Waller, 6'1", 225 pounds, 230 pounds in that range. Edge slash inside linebacker. Florida thinks, here's an interesting thing, Cory. Yeah. Florida thinks that Jamonte Waller is like the next Harold Perkins, the guy, the star linebacker for LSU. They love this guy. I got some explosive. The latest intel is Auburn is working really hard on him. Yep. Working really hard on him. He was there just recently for the Georgia game. That would be the team to keep an eye on here. Rival fan here, y'all's mods are 5 stars. Well, thank you. I think that's a little bit of a reach, but we appreciate that.
We'll take it.
Yeah, hey, believe me, yeah, we'll take it. All right, here's a good one. Nature Gator Cory says beating South Carolina on the road would be a big positive for UF recruiting. There's no question about that. Nature, here's the deal. If they don't win this weekend, boy, having a winning season is really in jeopardy at that point. You got to win this weekend. You'd be 5-2 going into an off week. You got Georgia after that. You got Arkansas at home. Georgia's going to be a tough one. But even if you lost that, you're 5-3 playing Arkansas at home. You get to 6-3 with some games remaining. LSU isn't the LSU that everybody thought they'd be. Missouri's been tough, but now they're hitting the
all those road games. I mean, as of right now, I mean, it's hard. And I think, Keith, you brought this up last week. I thought it was key. I was kind of looking at which games would be the most important. You pointed out South Carolina. And them going into a bye week too, just them to separate from the program, from a mindset and where their confidence is. I feel like that South Carolina game, for several different reasons, is important. Recruiting's recruiting, and Montgomery, one of their top quarterback targets, Ryan Montgomery at 25, he'll be at the South Carolina game. Florida and South Carolina are right there at the top, so
that's right.
Definitely have an impact, on and off the field.
We got time for a few more questions. Again, if you like what we're doing, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, tell a friend, leave a comment. Tell Cory that the Lions are going to win the Super Bowl this year, even though there's no chance in hell that's going to happen. All right, next question. Any update on Ivan Taylor, the 2025 cornerback from West Orange, Jordan Castell's former teammate? Cory, anything on Ivan Taylor?
So they offered him early, and we thought he'd be one of the first 25 guys in the class. I mean, like you said, he was offered early, but I talked to him many times. He hasn't heard from Florida much at all in the last couple of months. And it's kind of surprising to me. Corey Raymond evaluated him in the spring, offered highly ranked kid, but we'll see if that changes over time. But obviously they have guys higher on the board right now.
All right. Is Florida still in pursuit of Jalewis Solomon? That's the defensive back, slash receiver who decommitted from Auburn just, I guess, yesterday. Interesting story. He's got a brother that plays for Auburn. Zacchaeus Walker is a defensive lineman at Auburn. He's got another brother that I think is the year behind him, Zayden Walker, who is a 5-star pass rusher. And they may end up all at 3 different schools. But to answer your question, I never got the feeling Florida was 100% recruiting him harder. I mean, I went and saw him this spring, and at the time he said, I'm here for Florida all the time. They like me at receiver. But then Florida picked up 3 receiver commits. Yeah. And the feeling now is if Florida adds a 4th receiver, it's going to be like an elite guy. I don't know. I mean, maybe you sniff around on that. I believe that people are talking about South Carolina for him.
Yeah, well, the thing is, he was more of a realistic target. I would say late last year, early this year. Even his brother, the 25, you're talking about too, the edge. What's his brother's name? One more time, Keith?
David Walker.
Even with him, they visited Florida a few times, but there hasn't been much traction. Even with Walker, who's an elite 5-star kid, I don't believe Florida even made his top group either. So,
all right, I had Had to get up and get a cough drop here. Let's get to a few more questions, and then we will get out of here. A few more.
The only people spelling Cory, Cory. I mean, you guys are killing me with the spelling.
Well, at least it's not Kori.
It could be worse, man. It could be worse. I appreciate it.
A little smiley face or a heart at the end or something. All right. NIL has ruined college football. Florida rocks, man. It's made it interesting. I'll tell you that. Oh, wait a second.
It's made our job interesting. It's way more difficult than it used to be with these elite kids recruiting. I mean, covering the recruitment, it's definitely – whew. Oh, I see it. I'm talking. Well, I just went on a rant a minute ago. I just talked for a good 5-6 minutes. So
Nature Gator, not a fan of mine. Okay. All right. Let's see here. We're going to get to a few more here. We appreciate everybody stopping by the way. Okay. Here's an interesting one. Nature wants to know, Cory, you can't get your name right, but he wants to hear more from you. How much is NIL involved with LJ McCray?
I think it's involved with all these top kids. I mean, it's a discussion, but every time we've talked to them, I don't think that's a deciding factor. I mean, you have those conversations when you're a top-level recruit like that, but everything from talking to sources and even from talking to him, I think relationships and the state of the program are probably the two most important things for him.
All right, we're going to let you do more talking since nobody likes hearing my voice. All right, Mr. Bird says, any news on Charles Lester, 5-star FSU defensive back commit, George Rushing, the son of former Florida tight end George Rushing, or the Alabama DB? I think they mean Jameer Grimsley, the cornerback committed to Alabama. What do we got on those three guys, Cory?
I'll run through it real quick. Lester, I think he's solid to FSU. It's going to take a lot to flip him. I'll be very surprised if he's not in their class, but Florida's the only other school that he really mentioned when he visited a few weeks ago. Yeah, we'll keep track of it. Florida's supposed to get an OV. I think they're going to get him on campus for the FSU game. So we'll keep an eye on it. With Rushing, I still think, he's a 5-star legacy kid. I think Oregon's in the best spot right now. As we reported Gators Online yesterday, Willie Peterson reached out to the family for the first time in a while. I asked the family if Florida's going to get an OV, and understandably so. They're just kind of going through a whirlwind right now, so everything's kind of up in the air. And who's the last one? Jameer Grimsley. Yeah, I think Keith and I are pretty much the same on this one. On-field results are big when it comes to Florida. He comes from a house full of Florida fans too. Obviously, that helps. He's from Tampa, so proximity. But I think right now Alabama's they're positioned well. I think the good thing is with Florida, they haven't got an OV yet, so hopefully maybe they'll get him on campus in December, and that nostalgia comes back of being a Florida fan. We'll see, but I like where Alabama stands.
All right, Cory, let's just run through these pretty quickly.
Yeah,
Mr. Bird. Cory, do you think recruits want to commit or just waiting to see Billy show them why they should commit? I think there probably is some wait and see on that. But look, they've already got a lot of hay in the barn for this current class.
Yeah.
And there's already one commit for next year. You're not getting a ton of early 2025s. Cory, your thoughts?
Yeah. No, are they asking about 25s or 24s? This one,
not specific, just anyone.
If it's 24s, their main guys. I mean, they're all elite kids who just need to take their time. It's such an important decision for these kids. I mean, like I said, I know from all fans and us covering it from afar, you might seem like one school has a clear advantage, when it comes to that. But I think overall, these kids really want to make the best decision possible. No one wants to go to a school. No one wants to go in the transfer portal. Everyone wants to go to a school and let it work out. So I'm not surprised.
Thoughts on who the next 2025 commit could be? I thought maybe Ryan Montgomery, the quarterback, but now he's visiting South Carolina. He's going to visit Auburn.
Yeah.
And I think you thought maybe Javon Boggs,
the
receiver from Cocoa, and he just committed to Ohio State. So it turns out both of us were probably wrong there. I'm not sure who the guy would be. Maybe somebody like Jalen Wiggins.
Wiggins, I think, one. Even with the Tarvos in the Hilton Stubbs, I'm not saying Florida has slipped with them, but the momentum wasn't as high. Like in the offseason, they're visiting all the time. I think right now those kids are kind of more even right now when it comes to being open with schools. All
right, a couple more, and then we got to get rolling here. Who are lesser-known recruits that we are after? Number one would be Gregory Smith, the defensive back that Florida just offered last Thursday. I went and met with him Friday. Cory talked to him Saturday. 6'4". Why is everybody late offering him? 6'4" safety, because he's played quarterback exclusively the last few years. This is his first year really playing defensive back. So the film
he didn't play when you saw him too. Has he been out?
He's hurt. He's hurt, of course. I drove down there. Yeah, but the film just got out on him. Yeah. And a lot of schools are after him. Also, he's a high academic guy. Tulane, Vanderbilt, those schools want him too. So my guess is Florida. I think Florida made a big move for him the other day, and as Cory reported, he's going to officially. Why do we keep Missing. Looking. We got Grimsley.
What's up, Nick?
I love that photo. All right, let's see here. You're the
like
man.
He's smiling back at us. Like when I look at him, it looks like he's laughing at us.
Okay, not trolling, but I would like to point out that Duke is ranked higher than us and can't compete with money. What happened to the student part of student athlete? I mean, it's just you have your up years and your down years. I mean, over the long haul, who would you rather play football for, Florida or Duke? I mean, I don't think that's.
I mean, the student part's always been there. It's just before NIL, you just had to do a lot of stuff behind closed doors. I mean, that's just what it is. Now you're with NIL around, we can just see how recruiting really is.
All right, last question here, and I think we are going to be done. What's the intel on the Arkansas running back commit? That's Jaden B. He plays, I want to say it's Columbia High School, but it's in Decatur, Georgia, which is in the perimeter, inside the perimeter of Atlanta. There's been some good players come out of that. Florida's still heavily recruiting him. We're going to have more on him in a few weeks, I'm sure. Still recruiting him. I wouldn't rule out him visiting in the near future. That would be my take on that. You know, obviously they just offered a running back in Texas last week. There's a lot of people after that young man.
Yeah.
The Florida has been on Jaden B pretty steadily. So we'll have to see how that goes. But I do think at some point he's probably going to visit. I think that is it, Corey. I think we're done, man. We
covered all the top guys. I think, pretty much. I mean, I think right now other guys can surface. New offers can go out. I mean, we've always seen that, but there's other targets in the class. But right now, the guys we discussed are definitely the hot names. The guys we need to be tracking as of right now.
Yeah, it's I'm looking at the commit list, and we're trying to figure out how many guys are going to stick with Florida, and it's hard to know because now you never knew. But now you have the added layer of the NIL. And then you have this other layer of, well, what if Florida wins 8 games? They're going to keep a lot of people and they're going to go steal some people. But what if they win 5 games? What does that do? Does Billy then get thrown on the hot seat, whether legitimate or not, or real or not? The perception, as they say, becomes the reality. Do other schools use that against Florida? Of course, they're going to try. So there's all these unknown variables. And, we only have 2 months out. And then we're there, All right, let's wrap it up with one final comment. Willie, I like the good news. I like to spread the good news here, the positive vibes. Willie Peterson says, we going to get 2 recruits that shocked the recruiting class. Well, he says we is going to get. I know. I just love how you had to sync that up and I wanted to give it a Southern accent. I don't know whether Willie's Southern or not. I don't know. Shoot, I've been living in Georgia and covering Auburn all these years.
I'm from Michigan, man, so I'm not from the South.
Willie, those are some good vibes right there. You want to tell us who they are? You can message us off there. But anyway, that'll do it for Talking Gators Recruiting. I am Keith Niebuhr. That is Corey Bender. I'll do better to let Corey talk a little bit next time.
Hey, Perry Mason, did I speak enough for you? Hopefully that was better towards the end. Hopefully.
No, I don't think it was that you weren't speaking enough. I think that they just wanted me to shut the hell up.
Dude, you have the intel. We just, like you said, I think hey, like I say, we're still learning as we go. It's all fun, and that's the fun about this. We don't pre-script this. We don't cancel. We just roll with this.
Yeah, there's a reason why we're not on ESPN too. Okay,
definitely.
For me, for Corey, he just doesn't have the looks. For me, I got the looks, but I got all the other. I don't have anything else. That's the problem. I mean, looks wise, they'll take me. They'll put me on 6 o'clock, man. I mean, I got that. Okay, no, okay, well, good try. All right. We're going to get rolling. We appreciate everybody stopping by. And look, guys, it's a big week. They got to win this one. I mean, this is the biggest game of the year. I think Corey agrees. Yeah. Make sure you go to GatorsOnline.com right now. It's a great deal. $1 for 1 month. Get your foot in the door. Check out all the recruiting coverage, all the team insight, the team intel, the recruiting insight, the recruiting intel, and the best message board community for Gator Nation. But that'll do it for this edition of Talking Gators Recruiting. Take care, everybody.